Ducky is a name that triggers quite the nostalgia, especially for those who have been around since the early Fortnite days. Back then, all their boards were a very common sight, known for their affordability and their accessibility. But then they just seemed to vanish from the scene. Now, whilst others were innovating, Ducky has been more recently working behind the scenes to give something that is more appealing, but also with new technology. And that brings us to the Ducky OneX. The board is available in 100% and 60% layout. Now personally, I think a 65% option would have been ideal, as dedicated arrows are still highly valued by many. A TKL version would have also hit a sweet spot for those wanting something between a full size and a compact board. The physical design can be a bit polarizing. When I first unboxed it, the board looked quite tall and aggressive. However, the actual height is pretty standard and the adjustable feet offer angles of 8, 11 and 14 degrees. The case design is where I have some reservations. The top slants forward, creating a rounded peak in the back, but the front edge is sharp and angular. This can cause slight misalignments with some wrist rest, though it's more of a visual issue than a functional one. My main concern is comfort. If you do rest your wrists on the edge of the board, you might find the sharp front edge uncomfortable, lacking the support of an inverted slant design. It's a minor point, but it's something worth noting. The case is primarily ABS plastic with metallic accent plates in certain areas. I was concerned about the plastic, but the typing experience combined with the high quality keycaps, dampening system and new induction switches is surprisingly pleasant. The typing feel is on the stiffer side despite the semi-gasket mount. This is due to Ducky's Quack Mechanics dampening system. It's a somewhat silly name, but the implementation is really damn good. The dampening is made up of a 7-layer construction: a PET switch sheet, EVA plate foam, IXPE sheet, PET acoustic sheet, IXPE foam, silicone bottom foam, and housing gaskets. The switches are a new type of tech that uses coils under each switch in the PCB. Each switch does have a metal probe that disrupts the signal to create an actuation. The conical shape of the probe allows for extreme sensitivity adjustments, enabling features like rapid trigger and multi-point actuation. Now, compared to Hall effect switches, which can lose magnetic strength over time and consume more power, induction switches offer higher power efficiency, better accuracy, better consistency, and a potentially better feel and sound due to their construction. The switches consist of a composite POM stem with nylon housings and a generous amount of factory lube. The springs are on the lighter side of medium, providing a perfect amount of force for actuation. But a current limitation of this new tech is the limited availability of compatible switches for the hard swap sockets. There are only 2 options on the market and no extras are included in the package in case of issues. The performance is really good, even on the 2.4 GHz wireless dongle, which I've primarily used. It operates at 1 kHz and on paper it performs slightly better than the Wooting 60HE by a millisecond or 2. In real world use, the difference is not all that, but the fact that it achieves this performance wirelessly is pretty impressive. Now, in terms of wireless connectivity, it also offers Bluetooth, allowing you to connect up to 4 devices and switch between them almost instantly. It's pretty overkill for some, but useful for those who want to use it across multiple devices like laptops, tablets, phones, or even work computers. The battery life is significantly impacted by RGB usage. On the 100% model, I got around 35 hours with the RGB off and 11 hours with it on. The 60% model yielded around 38 hours with the RGB off and 13 hours with it on. I do recommend either reducing the brightness or turning off RGB entirely just to maximize the battery life, especially since the wireless performance isn't something to brush off. Now obviously the OneX isn't strictly a gaming keyboard. There might be better options for competitive focused gamers. It does blend the feel of a nice mechanical keyboard with the functionality of an office keyboard and the performance of a pretty high-end gaming keyboard. It does aim for both work and play, and it succeeds, but there is room for improvement. While the switches are decently lubed, I noticed some friction when actuating them slowly and from different angles. The first version I tested previously was much worse, so I'm pretty happy to see this improvement. I also did encounter some firmware issues related to the wireless usage. When the battery is low, the keyboard flashes red, disconnects for a second, and continuously inputs the last registered key, which can be pretty annoying during typing or gaming. Now, compared to the competition, the OneX's software features are pretty lacking. Now, after I faffed about the Newfie WebDriver that much, the Ducky software, which is also being built from the ground up, feels pretty basic. It does offer common functions like lighting changes, rapid trigger settings, macros, multi-point actuation settings, and key remapping. However, it does lack ModTap, which allows you to assign arrow keys as secondary functions on the bottom right, just like on my Wooting 60HE. This is a very good feature I prefer on 60% layouts. Now, some functions are locked and specific to certain wireless combinations. The number of general keys for functions and special keys are limited. It does also lack SOCD, rapid trigger sensitivity adjustments, snap tap, and different profiles. Now for a keyboard aimed at work and play, this is a pretty good keyboard for casuals. But Ducky should offer more customization options for a wider range of individuals. Now I personally use two different profiles on my Wooting keyboards. One specifically for gaming which has extremely sensitive actuations, rapid trigger, and SOCD enabled. And another profile for work which has higher actuation points, none of the extra stuff like rapid trigger or SOCD, and also mod tap enabled, which is for arrow keys. There are also some inconsistencies with the underglow. The RGB and effects are pretty nice, but there are spots under the keycaps where the lighting appears dead or washed out. Now the boards do retail for $140 US and $180. They do also only come in two different colorways, being black and white. And also in the box we do get a couple of goodies. Now this as a package deal I do feel is pretty reasonable for what you're paying. This is Ducky's first jump back into the competitive scene, and I do think they've made a keyboard that a lot of people can be very happy with. I've also been informed recently that a bunch of changes are coming to their WebDriver and also the firmware, just to iron out a couple of things, but also to bring more functionality to those in the enthusiast and competitive scene. Now Ducky has created a very well-made keyboard, especially at such a stock experience, and I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing their new products being even bigger and bolder.